Welcome back to the Kingsway Podcast.
Welcome.
You're here. Got some questions, Ryan.
I've got some responses. I've seen this trend where more, whether it's in like medical research fields or whatever, or it's in like Christian theology, how do we summarize things we believe, stuff like that. They've moved away from Q&A and they've moved to Q&R, question and response.
Yeah.
Rather than here's the one right answer for all time and space. It's like, here's our response. Here's our best understanding. So I don't know that I have the authoritative absolute answers.
Absolutely.
But I have some educated responses.
Yeah, semantics, right?
Yeah. Antics or semantics.
Well, as you can tell by the title, we are probably exactly the people you expect to be able to tell you all about how we got to where we are right now.
Here's what I don't want you to expect as the listener or the viewer is to say they're going to answer every question. And in fact, they're going to answer out of their deep, infallible knowledge on every question about every denomination. Not going to do that.
No way.
What we are going to do is try to give you tools and a baseline of understanding for navigating what's going on. So a lot of this from the engager's side.
Yeah.
You are somebody you want to maybe think about a church or changing churches or going to one for the first time.
Yeah.
And you don't know what's what. And all these churches seem to have all these funky names on them that don't seem like normal English like you speak every day.
Yep.
What's going on with that? Aren't they all just churches? Or are they different kinds of churches? Are some good and some are bad or not real churches or whatever? Are what's the name going to tell you about the church and what's it not going to tell you?
Yeah.
Is it going to be super stuffy and formal? I'm saying it in that way as a consumer of churches.
Yeah.
Not like that's bad or evil, but like, is it going to be formal? Is it going to be informal? Am I going to see blue jeans? Am I going to see priestly vestments? What am I walking into?
Well, and that's part of the challenge is like too, we're only seeing the American version of some of these things too. So like we just have to make sure like the amount of of diversity is global.
Yep.
And having been to a couple different places where they do church, even it would be similar denominations sometimes. It's just a different experience sometimes with a lot of this.
So we just want to help you navigate.
Yeah.
How to be a smart shopper for churches. Not that it's about church shopping and you should leave your church and go to another one, but like more like how do you read the nutrition label on a church?
Yeah.
That's more what I'm trying to say.
Well, and then how what can you expect at Kingsway? Because that's the other thing.
Yeah.
Like we don't have a denomination affiliation, but
Sort
we
of.
do.
We're going to talk about it.
Yeah, we don't, but we do, if that makes sense.
We'll probably answer that question at the very end.
Of course.
So make sure if we're wrapping up, Trevor, I'm saying this to you.
Yep.
Make sure we.
I'll make sure. I'll make sure we'll get to that. That's definitely the thing I'm most interested in.
So I want to start at like where you should start.
The early church.
Before that.
Yeah.
What is a denomination, or especially a Christian denomination?
Yeah.
Any thoughts or like history, of personal history on that?
Like when did the first denomination show up?
Okay, I'm gonna attack this from a different angle. What even is that thing?
The denomination?
Aren't we all just Christians? What even is a denomination?
Yeah.
What?
So the best way to picture it is like, which is the video I just watched, but it's also just healthy. It's almost like we have the same roots, but we're different branches. And so it's like denominations to me is like some branches grew higher, some branches grew right, some branches grew left, but they're all center cord around certain things in order to be attached to Christianity.
So that's also how I would describe denomination. Let me lay it out in the same way, but with different words. Let me rephrase it. There we go.
Yeah.
So there are concentric circles.
Yep.
Think about Russian nesting dolls or whatever, or like a target for shooting practice or something for bow and arrow or rifle or whatever. There's all these circles inside each other getting down to a central circle.
Yep.
That central circle is the tree trunk on your analogy.
Yep.
It is the things we have to agree on to be Christians at all.
Yep.
outside of that are important things, but they're not necessarily the thing or the central things. They're just really important.
Yep.
And they have consequences for how we practice our faith, how we talk about our faith, how we talk about God, how we talk about living out our faith and exercising it. And so the most central things are what change different groups from being Christian denominations to being like Christian offshoot cults.
Yeah.
That's how we would draw that dividing line. And maybe with some groups, it's a little harder to tell. But like pretty thoroughly is not the word I'm looking for. Pretty succinctly among, it's really hard because it's Christians defining themselves.
Yeah. So
if somebody else wants to define themselves a Christian, they're going by the same metric, just different people.
Yep.
Well, I think I am. Okay. So for me, that central core thing, you can throw different numbers of things in this central thing, but generally what Orthodox Christians have believed is that Jesus was a real person and was also God. Fully both.
Yep.
Fully a person, not 50% person, 50% God, but fully both. And the way you talk about that could even lead to some church splits like we're going to get to in a second. But the general idea, he's not a ghost. He's not faking being a person. And he's not a liar. He's not faking being God. And he's just a person. That's kind of the central claim. It's also the Judeo-Christian religion. So it's Christianity, which came out of Judaism. So there's some central beliefs about creation and stuff like that. How God created the world, that leads to some splits. But kind of the fact that God made stuff and you're one of his stuff that he made is kind of one of those central things. I don't want to lay too much more out here, but like for a lot of Christians, the Trinity, that God is one essence, but he is three persons, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. That's one of those. Anyway, when some group disagrees on those things, we usually say, nah, that's not a denomination. That's not just another kind of Christian. That's not a Christian.
Yeah, that's the resurrection of Jesus.
Yes.
Like there's certain things that like you would be like, and we've always said this, like there's a lot of things that we hold with a closed, there's a very few things we can hold with a closed fist.
Those central things.
And then there's a lot of things that we kind of have to hold with an open hand.
And that's going to go great in this. So a denomination is a group of Christians. They agree on that center ring, the center thing of most necessary things. But then maybe these different denominations disagree on some of the very important but outer rings of things. Not the very center one, but maybe the first or the second or the third, whatever. So we'll talk about, or you'll hear other people on YouTube or wherever talk about, I'm trying to think of the phrase. Non-essentials that we disagree over, not a salvation issue. They'll mean that to say not a necessary, agreeable thing. But very important and has direct applications for whatever.
Yeah, like I'll just throw a couple out there, okay? Because this is the easiest way to figure out, like, wow, this is how this happened. Like, so-and-so, like this. I want you to think you're at a family dinner, all right? And all of a sudden, you're a family, but if you had a choice, you can't choose who your parents were. You can't choose who your siblings are. So those things are non-essential. But you get to those things are essential, I should say. The non-essential things are what are you wearing? What are you putting on your plate? What do you like most, and what helps you connect or feel nutritious to you? You know what I mean? Like you can go down there like a meal. So it's like, but to some people they're like, well, that food's unhealthy, so we're not gonna put it on the table. Like, or I'm not gonna eat it. Some people are like, I don't like that, and they'll stay away from it. Right? Or they disagree about whether or not it's even a real food or good.
But they all still show up to the same family dinner.
They're still around the table. They're still family. They're still related. And so,
I think that's a pretty good example. So we showing up right now, 2025, to the United States of America, you're going to find more than 1,000 Christian denominations, which is frankly crazy.
Wild.
For us having one Jesus, that is and that's not including groups who we would consider cultic offshoots of whatever. So I'm going to say this not because I'm hoping to like fire shots at denominations, not because I'm hoping you'll think anybody's evil who you know, but they say they're from this faith group or whatever. But generally Christians, Orthodox, as in we agree on the center things, Christians would agree on Jesus and his divinity and his humanity and his resurrection and all that kind of stuff. His equalness with God the Father.
Yep.
So in that way, we would not consider Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons. There are some people who will say some denominations within Seventh-day Adventism because of how highly they hold the teaching of a human person from the 1800s, somewhere in there. Generally, also Islam.
Yeah.
That is an offshoot of Christianity, sort of. Now it's in the 500-600, something like that. And a whole lot of stuff happened.
Muhammad.
And then they but with all of those, they disagree on the person of Jesus. That's one of those central things that makes them not just a denomination, but another religion.
Yeah. It's not in the same tree. It's a different tree. It doesn't have the same root.
They disagree on the roots and the center of the tree. Therefore, they're not a part of the same tree. But like denominations, our geographical location where Kingsway Christian Church sits, the building that the church meets at, we are right next to St. Suzanne's Catholic Church.
Yes.
And a former United Methodist Church, now going by Family of Christ.
Family of Christ.
I don't know if they have more words after that on their name. It's semi-recent.
I think it's just Family of Christ.
Yep. Anyway, those are all our brothers and sisters in Christ. They are all, now some people would, especially who like was raised in a faith like ours, maybe 80 years ago, would have some words about me saying Catholics are in the same faith family as us. But they literally believe in the same Jesus. And we're going to talk more about that family tree stuff. But in the non-essentials, we disagree probably on a bunch of stuff with the Catholic Church. Including the importance of different things, them lumping some things into what's essential and us saying that's not essential.
And that's part of it because of one of the biggest branches that broke off was, when the Catholic Church had the split with Martin Luther.
Yes. So let's talk about some history up until the moment of the Reformation. We can go through
the Reformation
10 years of that.
That's a big deal because it's part of our movement and where we're at. But what I will say is like the largest first break was the Roman and then the Eastern Orthodox.
Yes, that was the first big worldwide break. So Christians were just Christians. We were all
Little
Christians
Christ.
together.
Little Christ.
Yeah, we disagreed on the minor stuff, but we didn't not care about the leadership others offered over us and wisdom and whatever. Also, we were kind of in house churches from 33
Very
AD.
grassroots.
33 AD or whatever.
And it was also illegal. A lot of the times it was illegal.
So it's hard to like publicize. It's hard to have big public buildings or signs. Come to our trunk or treat when like everybody would like to persecute and kill you. That's a little overstated, but like sometimes it was a killable, arrestable offense. At other times it was like, oh, you're a business owner and you're a Christian. Well, I'm not gonna shop there anymore, and you're gonna go out of business, and your family's gonna be poor. Because I don't want to support.
But it's still spread like crazy.
Yeah, it spread like crazy. Honestly, our last book club review, Strange Religion, would be a great way to start to understand how that landed, both in the Jewish culture and in the Greco-Roman culture, and was different and similar and whatever. Anyway, they were all kind of one group, one church, even though they're in different locations and separated, couldn't talk to each other very much. But they were centered on the same fundamental ideas about Jesus. Yeah, there were some differences and some people who even believe things that are not orthodox.
And we have some of the first councils in Acts that talk about some of the differences and things that they had.
But generally, there's one council right there in the book of Acts, right about in the middle, chapter 15-ish or so, the Jerusalem Council. And then like the later 300s.
Yeah, which is
400s.
It's not in Jerusalem and it's not even in Rome. It's in Constantinople.
Yeah, I think so. Anyway, there aren't really any splits. There are only cults. There are only other religions that are similar to Christianity because they disagree about the center stuff. But nobody's splitting from each other because of disagreeing about the outer stuff yet. You get to about late 300s, middle of the 400s, and you have a few councils. This is churches sending their leaders to come to one place and agree on stuff about Christianity.
Because half of Rome collapses.
Yep,
And
that's true.
when half of Rome collapses, Rome is allowed, the city itself is allowed to stay Catholic. And it's allowed to keep its like papacies and all this stuff, or like to keep the Vatican. But the rest of the country,
when
in 380 when they're conquered, because the eastern side then keeps, they think they're in charge in Constantinople.
Yeah.
That's where we get Eastern or Orthodoxy. So then for a number of years, they're like fighting over who they think is in charge.
Yes, so that's like 1,080. Hold up. No, I think I'm getting that wrong. So there is a split and some like Assyrian Orthodox later. And there's a medium split.
Yep.
But compared to the later split, the East-West split in 1084 or something like that, which divides the Orthodox churches from the Catholic churches.
Yep.
It was not nearly as big. That one was huge. And that was the first split of Christians into different denominations so harshly that they wouldn't say they're another denomination. They'd say they're not Christians. They're apostates.
We're in charge. They're not in
Yeah.
charge. Yep.
Here's what's really funny. I've used the word Orthodox already in two different ways.
Yeah.
One is the kinds of churches, the denominations known as Orthodox. And the other is that they believe right. So think about the words dox and ortho. That they worship right.
Yeah, worship right.
Yeah. Think about ortho, that preface, that wherever those words are called.
Orthopraxy.
Anyway, ortho just means straight or correct, like an orthodontist.
Yep.
I'm going to straight your teeth.
Yep.
I'm going to ortho your dont.
Yep.
I don't know if that's how that works, but so they are the right worshipers, and they split from the everybody church.
Yep.
The Catholic Church. Our youth group recently just went through the Nicene Creed, I think.
Okay.
Which is funny because the Restoration movement, we're going to talk about all of it, does not like creeds. But this is one of the earliest and one of the most widely held, and it's generally very orthodox. But there's a statement in there, I believe in the Holy Catholic Church. Whoa. Where I grew up, that means you believe in the Roman Catholic Church. Catholic, though, just means universal, like across nations, across nationalities, across languages and whatever. This church is bound together in unity by Christ. Not this church is bound together in unity by the hierarchy of the Roman Catholic Church with the Pope at the top and then the cardinals and then the bishops and then the whatever. And so it's funny because Catholic also has two meanings. It's the Roman Catholic Church, kind of shorthand for that.
Yep.
And it's everybody.
Everybody.
So the two teams that split in 1084 were the right worshipers and the everybody church.
Yep.
Super funny names for that. Anyway, but generally, like international travel, not super prevalent. Nobody's taken a vacation to Europe from America or America to Europe. You don't travel that far. So there's a divide between the churches in the East and the West. Really doesn't affect most people in most places other than the content of the divide, what they're dividing over. Did the Father send the Spirit, or did the Father and the Son send the Spirit? It's the difference in one super long Greek word that I cannot spell for you right now. Homoousia or homo. Anyway, but they had this distinction over something that was important. Maybe not central, but maybe not vital to become a Christian, but important.
Yeah.
And they divided over it. Okay. Generally, though, your church, wherever you live, and the town that you live in, and the church you go to, wasn't impacted by that. You still went to the same church. There's still one church in your town and you go to it.
Yeah. And that's, I think, where we get to maybe the larger split that everybody knows about.
Hopefully more people know about.
Hopefully. Martin Luther had a pretty big, I would just say it's a historical moment in time that has a lot of things going for it. The Gutenberg Press just happens to be he knows multiple languages. It happens to, there's a lot.
We're going to fire hydrant some information at you. But if you look down an American street and see a bunch of churches, normally you'll only see churches from the West.
Yep.
All the splits we mentioned so far don't impact the names on the church buildings in the town you live in.
No.
Except for maybe a couple.
Yeah.
But that's usually a couple for every 100 or 1,000 churches.
Well, I was even going to use the examples of like we have St. Suzanne's right here. It's like that's the split from Martin Luther to what we are.
Yeah. So
like,
before the Protestant Reformation, which a lot of people would claim started 1517 with Martin Luther.
But it actually started earlier.
There was
pockets.
Let me break down the Protestant Reformation words.
Yeah.
Protestant, meaning something's going on and we are protesting it.
Yep.
Like government protests or civil rights protests or whatever. And then Reformation. We're protesting what you did, but we'd like to fix it. We'd like to form it again so that it's right. Mm-hmm. So the funny thing about the Protestant Reformation is it broke a bunch of Christians away from the Roman Catholic Church. And I'd like to talk about that a little bit before then for a second, but it broke a bunch of churches away from what was kind of in the West, one universal church, because they wanted to reform that church.
Yep.
And this is what we're taught in Protestant circles, and it's generally right. Although Catholics who were taught at seminary and university would be like, oh, those bad Protestants, the evil guys, Darth Vader from Star Wars. And we'd say like, oh, those Catholics, the evil guys, Darth Vader from Star Wars.
Yep.
So
he's your father.
There's there's wrongs on a lot of sides in the Protestant Reformation. Nobody's totally clean-handed and walks out of there super great. But generally, the Catholic Church held the power for the church in the West. Other Christians and smart people in the West were like, hey, there's some really broken, corrupt stuff in what's going on, and we think the church is good enough to fix it. And the Catholics said, you're out, you're excommunicated, whatever. They responded to, this is over about 150 years, they responded to people wanting to correct things by doubling down on the things they wanted to correct and then kicking those people out.
Yep.
You'll see when we talk about the Restoration movement, where our church name comes from, pretty much the same thing happened.
Yep.
Not trying to paint ourselves as the good guys and everybody else is evil, but there's some history there. We'll talk about it.
Well, normally the longer something exists, it normally needs that. Because even like the Methodist church that then was United Methodist Crossway, it started by John Wesley. It was a branch, and he didn't want to change anything. He wanted the method to change.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't even that he disagreed. He was just like, I want more fire. I want more revival.
Holiness and charisma.
He wanted there to be a little bit more energy. And he's like, so
holiness and passion is probably a better way to put it. So one of the reasons the Catholic Church needed reform and then resisted it is because the Catholic Church, think about the very early church. It's illegal to be Christian in general. It's frowned upon. Everybody would hate you if they knew that you were a Christian, whatever. So they have government oppression against them. By the 1500s, they are the government.
Yep.
They are the government between countries. When countries fight, the Pope might have to be the deciding factor to be like, I'll threaten you. I'll take away your stuff. I'll do whatever if you don't. Whatever. So one of the darkest moments in church history is not the Inquisition, the Crusades, where the Catholic Church, it's in the West, but mostly in Europe. That's where it's centered because Rome and the Vatican and all that. It's centered in the West. It's centered in Europe. And they tell all the Christians, hey, there's these Muslims, this Islam population overtaking the north of Africa. That's really close to Israel. And also a bunch of other stuff. And I think, did God just say go kill everybody and try to take back land and power and control and whatever? And so the head of the church is kind of in bed with a bunch of kings and queens and nobility from across all Europe. And they organize people to send armies down there and just fight people. And the stories about what happens in the Crusades are not very Christian, are not very Christ-like.
Yeah.
And I even say that saying like it was well known in the 1300s through the Protestant Reformation and on that like government and power and influence bled over and overlapped with the Catholic Church massively to where just like the evil Romans did in the 200s, hey, my nephew, I'm a prince or whatever over this area. My nephew, he deserves some respect because he's related to me. make him a priest in the temple of Jupiter or whatever.
Yep.
That same kind of thing, 1,000 years later, hey, the king's nephew deserves some title. Hey, make him a priest in this church.
Yep.
Make him a bishop over this area, whatever. And so religious titles and authority were handed out to people of regular titles and regular authority.
Yep.
In ways where it's like full power nepotism kind of stuff happening. Not everybody everywhere is evil, but there's enough of it and it's high enough up in the organizational chart that's like, this thing needs fixing. There's also maybe 5 other issues I could talk about.
Yeah, and I think that's what when Martin Luther finally puts his 95 Theses up on this place that he's close to where he's teaching.
It's the church in the city that he's a professor at.
And so when he nails
religion.
it's exactly what he said. He didn't want to break the church. He wanted to just change it.
And on top of that, those were normal things he did.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of their education was discussion. He would put their discussion questions up there all the time.
Yep.
So the fact that this one got taken and blown out of maybe not out of proportion, but as if he was like anarchy against the church, whatever. It's like, no, these are our discussion questions this week. Why is the Pope so evil? Why do they demand money to get your relatives out of purgatory? A bunch of stuff that in his study of the New Testament letters, he was like, nah, that doesn't sound like Jesus or early Christianity at all in these certain areas. Now, I want to back up to a super 30,000 foot view just for a second.
Yeah.
What is a denomination? So what we've kind of said is it's a group of Christians. They're Christians because they agree on the central stuff, who disagree about the non-essential stuff, but still really important.
Yeah.
So what that hasn't tackled is church government. Some people will define a denomination as who their government is. This is a building in which a church gathers.
Mm-hmm.
Who do they answer to outside of this building?
Yeah.
That's the way a lot of churches will define we're Lutheran, we're Presbyterian, we're non-denominational because we have no government.
Yep.
But denomination means so much more than who's your government.
Yep.
It also means what are the assumptions about faith that you're bringing into this group of believers in this worship gathering. So, as we'll see in the Protestant Reformation, there are a lot of people who are rebelling against the government of the Catholic Church and then rebel against some specific issues, but then just kind of either blindly or with some evidence agree to other ways the Catholic Church has been going, mostly because they don't have a context for what's not Catholic. That's their only experience of Christianity.
Exactly.
And so they'll just kind of let some sacraments by. They'll kind of let whatever by. They'll let music style. They'll let book order in the books of the Bible or names or whatever. The earliest Protestants, looked very Catholic because of their history, not because of who's in charge of them.
Yeah.
They were born and raised Catholic. So there's not a huge reason to change a bunch of stuff. So even if a church says it's non-denominational, you can probably tell where they got their stuff from, because some of their church stuff is assumptions from denominations.
Yeah.
So the earliest Christian churches, like our name, were Presbyterian. There's some stuff, I'm sure, maybe I should look into this more, that comes from that. But then there's a bunch of stuff we disagreed with.
Yeah.
And so we rebelled against that, but kind of blindly accepted, or were everything else passed the smell test because we've been living in a house that smells like that.
Yep.
So anyway, that's part of denominations, even though there's about to be a lot of denominational fighting, literally fighting. People are slain. Armies are raised up to fight other Christians.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason, because of the governmental side, is then once you have kings that start to call themselves Protestant or be in the movements Reformed, then you have kings that are fighting against, I'm the real Christian. No, you're not the real Christian.
Yes. Now, one of the reasons a lot of Protestants take up arms, and it's not super clear cut. It's not like World War II or whatever. But some of the reason is the Catholic Church has arms.
Yep.
They were the ones who got the armies together for the thing.
Yep.
For the thing
Crusades.
For the Crusades. So yeah, they got weapons. They got whatever. They're not super happy about you saying, "Nah, I'm not Catholic anymore. I don't have to pay tithes to Rome anymore."
And one of the biggest breaks on that whole movement, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right, was the sola scriptura.
Sola scriptura.
Scriptura, there it is.
It's Latin.
It's Latin, but it's basically the idea that like on the word alone.
Yeah. That's one of the big uniting factors among the Protestants. And the Protestants didn't actually fight each other that much
over that.
There was some, absolutely some. But they didn't fight each other as much as they fought with the Catholic Church, I think.
And that's part of the reform, though, is that they wanted to get back to the roots of what the early church did. They wanted to get back to the early, and what happened right at the same time as this occurred, it was one of the first translations of the Bible that was not Latin, that was mass produced.
All in all, one of the big issues was the Catholic Church, even to this day, holds scripture and church tradition as equally authoritative. And they have good arguments. They'll say, hey, scripture is church tradition. You think the ancient nation of Israel and the early church was authoritative? Yeah. Why did they lose it? Yeah. Like, why act like that can't still be the way it is or whatever? And so they would say, yeah, scripture's authoritative. Probably the way they would phrase it is, you don't come up with new authoritative stuff that disagrees with past authoritative stuff.
Yeah.
And so scripture's authoritative and tradition is authoritative in interpreting scripture.
Yep.
Maybe not against scripture, but they would say stuff like that. And so the thing that got the Protestants so heated was somebody tried to create a local language version of the Bible. The Bible is written in Hebrew and Greek, but it was in the Greco-Roman world. It was translated into Latin because that's the language of Rome and the Roman Empire. And then it stays in Latin until nobody remembers Latin anymore.
Yep. It's a dead
except
language.
for the religious elite.
Yep.
And so, like, there were Germans and English people and French who were sitting in church just totally oblivious to whatever scriptures are being read because they're so committed to them being in Latin. That's the holy language, even though Jesus probably didn't speak Latin and none of the Gospels are written in Latin and whatever. And so one of the things is they start trying to write Bibles in the local languages. And the Catholic Church finds out and kills these people.
Yep.
Hey, we didn't say you could do that. Okay. Isn't this in line with the Bible?
Yep.
No, but it's not in line with our authority. And then paying penance, paying physical money to get God to release your relatives from purgatory early. Not only is this kind of evil and wicked in itself, in at least some of its applications, but then one of the most notable examples that Martin Luther directly fought against was is this Sistine Chapel or something like that? The ceiling needs to be painted with a new mural by the best guy in the world and needs to cost a lot more. And I already wasted all my money on parties and stuff, so I'm going to offer a new penance thing so people will pay me money to get their relatives out. And so there were people walking around instructed by the Catholic Church to collect money in the name of the Lord, that this money will get your relatives out of purgatory and get them into heaven, purgatory being a middle waiting area between heaven and hell. Us Protestants don't generally believe in that, especially us here at Kingsway Christian Church. We don't really believe in that. It's not really in the 66 book canon of the Protestant canon that we have today, the current Protestant canon. But anyway, so they would walk around with these coffers, these like offering trays, and say, every coin in this coffer rings, another soul from purgatory springs.
Yep.
So in order to get people to give money, they're like, when you give money today, it's extra powerful against the eternal judgment of your relatives. Is that not the most health and wealth thing you've ever heard?
Yeah.
More than any of the TV evangelists who have like private jets and whatever.
Yeah.
It's and then even worse than that. One of the ones Martin Luther heard pretty close and personal was give money to this collection of penance, and you'll free your relatives even if they defiled the Virgin Mary herself.
Yep.
Barf. And so anyway, they had some legitimate reasons to be like, hey, your church authority, it reeks.
Yeah.
It's unchristian. we're not against any authority, but that shouldn't be the authority Christians follow.
Yeah.
And then that authority was doubling down on you have to pay penance, you have to be subject to tithe to the center of Rome, there's a bunch of other stuff. Anyway, so the early stuff they disagreed on was doubly bad because in disagreeing, you're disagreeing with an authoritative arm of the church, which is what high-ranking church people have said in the past 100 years. For example, one of the last, I'm gonna give you a chance to talk.
You're good.
One of the last, this was crazy. So the Council of Trent was in 36 or 63. I think it's 63. I'm getting my numbers messed up. Basically, this was the Catholic Church saying, okay, reformers, you've made a big enough fart cloud over our church. Let's hear you out. And they heard him out and they said, good, they're here. Try and kill them or arrest them or whatever. And everything you said is wrong. And we're going to double down on the things you don't like. It was like an anti-Reformation.
Yeah.
They doubled down on the bad things, or the unjust things, or the unprompted things. Vatican I is a council in the 17 or 1800s. They still don't get the picture. The Protestant different denominations are generally national denominations. So, for example, Protestant meaning you protested the Catholic Church in the West and now you're a new denomination. For the English, it's more complicated than this, but this is generally how it is. For the English in England, it is the Anglican Church, the state church of England. For
of
Scotland,
England.
it is the Presbyterian Church. For
which the big difference is between that is a monarchy and republic way of running the church, and so
they're so different now. But that was the origin.
Yeah,
Germans and then Swiss and maybe Netherlands or something like that. They are the Lutherans after Martin Luther. The French are the Reformed churches after John Calvin, and then that spreads into further that way. That cardinal direction. So all these guys are national churches. They also have armies. They also like fighting. In all of their fighting with the Catholic Church and maybe each other a little bit, they end up going to Rome and surrounding the Vatican.
Yep.
And the Vatican is as powerless as it has ever felt militarily. What do we do? Let's call a council, Vatican I, the First Vatican Council, because we can't leave because they'll kill us.
Yep.
And what is God telling me? Oh, the Pope is infallible when he sits on his papal chair?
Yep.
What? So that isn't that old. That is about 200 years old right now, that the Pope is infallible. The highest person in the leadership of the Catholic Church cannot be wrong when he sits on his chair and makes declarations. Now, it doesn't happen that often.
Yeah.
But it fully happened reactively. Oh, they're surrounding me. I'm going to sit on God's magical chair and whatever I say is what God says. So that's the worst, ugliest extent of tradition has authority. Church leadership has authority and is authoritative for Christian life or whatever.
Yeah.
That's the ugliest version of that.
And it gets, the church history, when you go down and study it all, it normally comes from things get bad and then someone tries to make it better. And then things get bad.
Old guard doesn't like it and new guard grassroots
because even the way that I would say the Mayflower and some of the original
Puritans,
they were Anabaptists that weren't accepted, and they didn't.
Anabaptists and Puritans are pretty closely related. Quakers are all pretty closely related.
They're like the Mennonites, Amish, still carry many of those beliefs, and denominations carry too. It's pretty wild how many different things, because once the Reformation happens, then the Restoration movement happens.
After by a couple hundred years. I want to say one more thing about the Catholic Church before we move on. I've already said they're our brothers and sisters in Christ. And then I said a bunch of bad stuff about them. So I don't want to leave it there. I think that there was a period in time, frankly, a pretty long period in time, where enough bad people were in power. Corrupt, self-seeking people were in power in the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
I do not think that's true today, especially because the Second Vatican Council happened in 1963.
Yeah.
That's very recent.
Yep.
I know people who were alive in 1963.
Yep.
That was the Catholic Church Reformation that we were all waiting for.
Yeah.
Because if you remember, the original reformers didn't want the downfall of the Catholic Church. They wanted them to get their crap together, to get healthy,
Yep.
to find Jesus again. So in 1963, Vatican II happens. What are their big things that they say at Vatican II? Number one, for Protestants at least. Number one, hey, let's start having church services not just in Latin. Put in whatever language the people speak wherever they're at. So not have church services in English, but if you're in Bali,
Yeah.
I don't know what language they speak over there, but that one, that's the right one. And honestly, if you're in Texas, have some in Spanish and some in English because there's enough of both kinds of people and whatever. So that was a major thing. Another major thing is, hey, Protestants aren't necessarily going to hell. Woohoo! I'm really thankful for that one because it means, hey, they see us as Christians again instead of
Outcasts.
rejects, outcasts, anarchists, whatever. They think they'll see us in heaven, at least some of us. So a lot of good stuff happened. There's more than that, but that's some of the main stuff. So they aren't the bad guys. If
No.
you see a Catholic today, don't be like, nah.
And I think that's the
And
fundamental thing.
don't growl at them when you pass them coming to Kingsway Christian Church
I know some beautiful people that are Catholic and
with beautiful faith.
with beautiful faith.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And there were beautiful Catholics that entire period of history I mentioned.
Absolutely. And the thing that Protestants very quickly learned is that making something central and united and holding it together for long amounts of time is incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
Because the amount of branches that break out of that Protestant movement is the 1,000 that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Like,
all 1,000 that you see walking down the street in a major city or whatever, all 1,000 churches that are there of different denominations. They all happened after after 1500 AD.
Yep.
That's in the last quarter of the time that the church has existed, all those denominations showed up. And it's because the Protestants branched off of the Catholic, and now everybody's like, oh, it's okay to branch off. So when we have some major dispute, I'm taking my toys and I'm going over here.
Yep.
Anyway.
Which, I mean, a lot of the issues, I mean, you can go down the line. They're not what we would call essential. I mean,
They're really important.
They're important.
But they're not essential
Yeah.
for thinking you might see somebody else in heaven someday.
So, for example, infant baptism. All right.
Yeah, baptism in general.
Baptism in general. Yeah.
Do you call it a sacrament? Do you call it an ordinance?
Yep.
Which kind of just means, is it a good thing you do, or is it a thing God ordained that you do?
Yep.
I said that as backwards. Anyway, whatever. And then, like, how do you perform it? Is it like the new circumcision? So for the Jews, it's like we take our baby and we do this procedure, and now they're one of us.
Yep.
They didn't choose us. We inducted them into our thing.
Yep.
That's how infant baptism kind of works, except for Catholics who think it's for original sin. They also think the other thing, but they think it's also for original sin, and you save that baby from hell.
Absolutely.
Don't agree with that. Still not our enemies.
But again, that's the thing. Like, there's so many things, even in the Protestant movement.
Yep.
And when you go down the line, it's like how we gender roles, how
Other than, sorry, I'm not trying to interrupt you. Other than a couple denominations, though, everybody still thinks baptism is a huge deal.
Oh yeah, no, I that's what I was going to say. It's wild how, like, it's very small things to how you dress, to like what instruments are on stage, what songs you sing, how you interpret certain pieces of the 66 Bibles, 66 books in the Bible. Like, all of this stuff starts to really break down. And it's not as complicated, but you can see how it would be a big enough deal for some people to be like, I don't want that.
So, for instance, this is not nearly exhaustive. It's not nearly everything that could be said. But generally, the Anglicans broke off of the Catholic Church because we don't want to be ruled by you right now. In our daily faith practice.
Yeah.
There's more to that story, and the King of England wanted to get divorced, and Anglicans are cool too. They're not evil. But like, we don't think that Rome should rule all of our churches in our faith practice right now. The Lutheran Church is split off because we don't think Rome should rule over who is saved and not saved over our church in eternity.
Yep.
The Calvinist Church, I don't think I don't have a good answer for them. If I thought about it for 5 minutes, maybe I could come up with one. But the Presbyterian ones, we don't think our church should be governed at that level. That like,
and it definitely has like there's lots of times when you go to read about some of this stuff that it's inside certain places because all these, I think oftentimes because we see Protestant, Methodist, Lutheran, Baptist churches in every state, in every corner. You don't think about it where it started regionally. Obviously when you say Roman Catholic Church, where the Catholic Church started. How it was
They
launched.
would claim to be the first church.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. In charts or graphs, family trees you see about Christian denominations, be really careful about the assumptions that graph is making, or that chart is making. Because they're going to probably say that one church is the original church and everybody else broke off of them.
Yep.
So the Catholics would absolutely say, our church started with St. Peter, the apostle, one of Jesus' 12 disciples. So we're the oldest church there is. I think some of those churches who broke off in the 300s-400s, I think the churches in the East who broke off in the 1084 would be like, we have the same exact claim as you. Why do you think we broke off of you and not you broke off of us? So for every group, they could make that claim.
Well, and even when I went to Cairo, they have their own Eastern Orthodox over there. They claim Mark was the one that started theirs. And so they have their own, we're the first church, type thing. And I do think that's what it ends up coming down to is can you imagine if Jesus is sitting up there like an eternal parent watching his children bicker over what slices of pie?
Twins be like, but I was born 7 minutes before you.
Exactly. And it's at a certain point, it's I get it. This colors don't mix or you don't like your vegetables or you whatever, but do you like me? Do you want to be with me? So,
I want to say one last thing, and then we're running short on time, so we need to get to what even are we? What are Kingsway we?
Yep.
So last thing I want to say, there's a word that gets thrown around in denominations, mainline Protestant.
Yep.
There are currently 2 to 3 definitions of that. One of them is very helpful historically, and 1 or 2 of them is very not helpful historically. Mainline does not mean mainstream. It doesn't mean what are the biggest Protestant denominations? It means what are the most prominent denominations? But one of the definitions is the most prominent in the 1920s during the Scopes monkey trial and whatever. And that's not helpful. That's a weird middle of the timeline snapshot that doesn't help anybody. So my favorite definition is the historical mainline. Who are the first branches off of the Catholic Church, not people who branched off of them, generally, although a couple would get grandfathered in. But who are the people who branched off of the Catholic Church the earliest? Because most of the other denominations didn't later branch off the Catholic Church. They branched off of those branches. They just keep branching and branching and branching 14 times, and then you get the one correct church, the Christian church. So kidding. And so generally, mainline could mean, in historical terms, the closest branches to the Catholic Church who split off in the Protestant Reformation. Also kind of including the Moravian Church, even though they were before, 70 years before Martin Luther and all that. But they split off, and then Lutherans, the Reformed churches, and then the Presbyterians, the Anglicans. I feel like there's another one. And then there may be some stragglers, some Congregationalist churches who don't have any government over them, who are right then. I think the Anabaptists broke off of the Anglicans pretty quickly. In super, because they can read the Bible now, they're taking a bunch of stuff super literally about holiness and dress code and whatever. And so they break off. They're like, you guys aren't even serious enough. Anabaptists and Baptists have the same conclusion about baptism. Why y'all baptizing infants? You should only do believers' baptism, baptizing somebody old enough to know that when they confess in their language that Jesus is Lord, that they mean it and that they can understand it.
Excuse you. Welcome back.
My sneeze just split from me. It's the new denomination of Ryan. Anyway, so generally those would be the ones I mentioned. And then Baptist in general, Methodist in general are some slightly later offshoots of the Protestant denominations, but they're generally considered mainline because they're very close to the start. Okay.
Yeah.
Like I said, the Protestant Reformation, 1600s, 1700s, it's gaining power, gaining traction. Hey, everybody who wants to go on a boat to the New World and escape religious persecution.
Yep.
The stragglers and also some real people from big denominations, but also the oppressed little denominations who are splitting and forming and whatever. Anyway.
And that's how we got a lot of the traction religiously over here is that they brought their specific understanding, their specific background, their specific denomination,
their specific views on the non-essentials, but the really importance.
And so that culture gets transferred into, the New England area, basically. And you go there now and you see it's very diverse, Boston, New England, Connecticut, it's
big Catholic populations, but also
lots
everybody
of
else.
Lutheran, lots of Presbyterian. So it's definitely, you can see the roots of some of this stuff.
When you read like the Mayflower kind of stories, you hear about Quakers and Puritans and whatever. Those were some of the most persecuted, smallest denominations.
And that's why there are a lot of them in Indiana and Pennsylvania and in those areas. They go a little bit further to set up their communities.
So we can keep going with denominations, and really, we probably don't have the time to cover charismatic and Pentecostal almost at all.
No.
But here's the thing you need to walk away with. If you want to hear a part 2 to this and hear us talk about the Mormon Church, charismatic, Pentecostal, and maybe further Methodist and some other stuff, we can do some of that.
Yep.
Sorry for how rushed this seems. I just want to say everything. Can't say everything. And also everything I'm saying is like sort of off the cuff, sort of generalized and not super specific with 10 references.
That's kind of how we do it. We're just kind of, there might be a couple of videos that we could link that are a little simpler understandings just to kind of visualize.
Yep.
Because some of this stuff is like, it does feel like you're like back in school trying to figure out how did the NFL look in 1922 versus the teams that we have now? And how did those towns lose this?
Tracking all the name changes.
Exactly. And like cities and all this stuff.
City changes. So here's where the rubber meets the road with our church. What are we? Is this actually Kingsway Catholic Church? It's not. So in the early 1800s, there were a good handful of movements. The country was founded in 76 and after some wars and some stuff, including the War of 1812, we're getting our footing. We're Americans. Also, I'm Presbyterian and I'm whatever. And all the same denominational infighting that happened in Europe
starts to happen here.
Surprise. They all hate each other here too. Just like that Adam Sandler vacation thing. I can take you to America. I can't make you start liking your other neighbors in America or whatever. Or Christians from other denominations. So they all get over here and they are so viciously fighting in social ways more than like fist fighting or killing or whatever, that a lot of these different denominations, they all have a church on the same street corner in different towns. And it's Baptist and Presbyterian and Methodist and Anglican or Catholic or Episcopal or whatever. Anglican and Episcopal are the same thing. Just the Episcopal Church is the Anglican Church, but not just in England. So you're not just under the Queen of England, the King of England. Anyway, they're all in the same street corner. And they say, hey, you're only actually saved if you go to our church. Oh, you were baptized in the Presbyterian Church? Well, that doesn't count over here. Actually, you have to get baptized in our church to be a part of our church and to be saved and to whatever. And they're all being so petty and stupid with each other in that way that there are multiple groups who pop up and are like, hey, are you frustrated with how your denomination hates everybody except for those 40 people in their church or whatever? Come to our thing. One of those was the Mormon Church. We could have a whole episode on that. I don't want to touch it very much. But they started about the same time as the Restoration Movement. Which became the Churches of Christ, the Christian churches, and the disciples of Christ. Not plural Christs. The Restoration Movement that became all those was actually two sporadic movements about a state or two away who were like, hey, I kind of hate this. One was in Cane Ridge, near the Cane Ridge Revival, and the other was somewhere else. I don't remember, Tennessee or something. And they both at the same time or within a couple of years were like, we kind of hate that you guys don't want to play along and play nice, get along.
Yeah.
There we go. And so they created these interdenominational movements outside of a Sunday morning, outside of a normal church building.
Yeah.
Hey, let's just be Christians and not Presbyterian Christians or Methodist Christians.
Yeah.
Let's just be Christians. And then just like the Reformation, when the churches with authority found out that they were doing that,
They were not
you're
happy.
excommunicated, you're excommunicated,
Yep.
you're kicked out, you suck, whatever.
Yep.
So then there's all these homeless Christians, spiritually homeless,
Yep.
and then they all just make a church. And then their churches find out about each other.
Yep.
That's how our church got started, not Kingsway, but the Christian churches and kind of the history we come from. We have no government. We don't pay dues to anybody outside of our building.
Nope.
We don't answer to anybody governmentally.
Nobody's sending us emails from someplace about what we need to say or not say or do or not do.
But we do have a history from a group of people who said, hey, let's stop being denominations and let's start being Christians. And so let's go back to the center things, the Bible and Jesus and whatever. And let's try to make a big deal out of the things that the Bible clearly says.
Fruits of the Spirit.
So here's one of the mottos of the Restoration Movement. Where the Bible speaks, we speak. And where it's silent, we're silent. Now, even that phrase was hard to interpret because different groups, that's why we split into three, even though we're one Unitarian, not Unitarian, one unity group. Hey, let's all just be Christians. Well, the disciples of Christ are the more liberal branch of the three. Where the Bible speaks, we speak. Where it's silent, we have full freedom to figure out anything we'd like it to say. The churches of Christ, we're the most conservative. Where the Bible speaks, we speak. Where it's silent, we are banned forever from anything that it does not say. They still haven't answered me on the pants thing. Jesus didn't wear pants, so why are you wearing pants? But that's why they were non-instrumental at the beginning. There's no instruments in the New Testament. So it's silent on that issue. So we cannot do it. We're in the middle. We're the Christian churches. Hey, let's be wise about this. Let's treat it like Chesterton's fence. There's a fence in this field. Let me figure out why it was put up and then decide to take it down or leave it up. Rather than fences are good or fences are bad.
And I think it is funny how a lot of people will grow up in a building and they will not realize, this word has a negative connotation. I'm not going to use it in a negative connotation, so try hard not to hear it in a negative connotation. But you'll be indoctrinated. You're indoctrinated by the core beliefs of that church, that core belief of that denomination, the core beliefs of what's being held. That's part of why when I talk even about Kingsway, I use our core beliefs, our core values as a good place for them to figure out what we're about. Because the things that are really our most center are super simple and
we've just revamped the part on our website that says our beliefs. So if you're like, what do those guys believe? Look on our website. But then our core values are the driving things, the things we specifically, not every church, but we specifically feel called to pursue. Anyway, I could say so much more about the Restoration Movement.
No,
but
it's good.
I think we've hit the essentials. The other motto is in essentials unity, in non-essentials liberty, in all things love. That's the driving thing behind the history of our church. So we aren't necessarily looking back through the journals of Alexander Campbell to see what should I believe on this thing or that thing. But we were taught by people who 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 held those beliefs. And so we may have changed some stuff, but we're generally Christian Church Restoration Movement. And what that means is we're Christians. When we have a question, the Bible should be the thing that should help us answer it. We shouldn't answer it without the Bible. The Bible doesn't have specific answers on every question.
No.
So we should use wisdom and prayer and learn from other traditions.
I've always loved the thought that you have to use everything that God gives you to make wise decisions. That means your experience, your wisdom, the Holy Spirit, and
prayer to the
prayer,
Father,
the Bible, use your friends, use wise counsel. There's
but don't be so slow to action that you just
Exactly.
Let everybody starve.
Don't
and
let
die.
fear reign. Love wins. I mean, there's just a certain level of it. Well, Ryan, your knowledge on this was awesome. I kind of just let you just kind of
Let me cook.
and I loved it. I think if you paid attention, you stuck together for this long. I think you've learned some stuff. But if you want to go down the rabbit holes
We're
of
gonna
some of this
link a
stuff,
few videos.
because there's some really cool stuff that you could watch, and the visualization helps a little bit because you kind of
Yeah.
see it like a branches of a tree.
There's a super rough entire church history denominations one. There's a what is a denomination one.
Yep.
And then there's maybe a third or fourth one I'm gonna stick in there.
Sounds great.
One on ours. One
Yep.
on who is we?
Who are we's?
Who are I?
Well, thank you so much again for paying attention. Leave a comment if you want to hear us do this again or have Ryan do a part 2.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Always leave us a review and share if you think somebody else would like to hear it. And until next time, I guess,
Yeah.
have a great and glorious day in the Lord. We'll see you later.
See you.